The air buzzed with joy as Adaira adjusted her veil one last time, her hands trembling slightly. She stood in front of the full-length mirror, admiring the intricate lace gown that hugged her body in all the right places. The reflection staring back at her was a picture-perfect bride. Her deep brown skin glowed beneath the soft light, and her eyes, large and expressive, sparkled with excitement. Adaira, now Mrs. Emeka Okeke, was living the dream she had envisioned since she was a little girl, marrying the man she loved and starting a family. She sighed, savoring the moment. The wedding had been a grand affair. Lagos Island, with its vibrant streets and sprawling skyline, had been the perfect backdrop for the celebration. Friends and family gathered in droves, the colorful SOEBI of the bridesmaids and guests creating a sea of cultural beauty. Adaira remembered how Emeka had smiled at her as she walked down the aisle. His broad shoulders and tall frame seemed even more imposing in his sharply tailored navy blue suit. She could still feel the warmth of his gaze, the unspoken promise of a lifetime of love and happiness reflected in his deep-set brown eyes. Now, as they sat in the quiet of their new apartment, the afterglow of the wedding fading, Adaira's thoughts turned to the future, a future that, to her, seemed as bright as the morning sun. "Do you think our first child will have your nose or mine?" she teased, running her fingers along Emeka's jawline. They were lounging on their couch, feet tangled together as they shared a bottle of wine. It was their first evening alone since the wedding, and Adaira was eager to dive into the plans they had so often discussed. Emeka chuckled, pulling her closer. "I hope they get your smile, though. It's what drew me to you." His voice was soft, but beneath his playfulness was a deeper truth. He had always admired Adaira's optimism, her ability to light up a room. "I can't wait to have little ones running around," Adaira murmured, her mind already drifting to visions of baby cribs and tiny shoes. She had dreamt of motherhood for so long, and with Emeka by her side, she was certain it would come easily. "3 kids, she declared with a giggle. 2 girls and a boy." Emeka smiled but said nothing. He leaned back and closed his eyes, content just to listen to her excitement. He, too, had imagined a future filled with laughter and the pitter-patter of small feet. But life had a way of turning even the most perfect dreams into unexpected challenges. Months passed, and the couple's lives settled into a comfortable routine. Adaira continued to run her boutique, designing and selling custom-made African prints that had gained a growing following. Her passion for fashion was only rivaled by her desire to be a mother. Every time a client came into her shop with a child, Adaira's heart swelled with anticipation for her own. But as the months stretched into a year with no pregnancy, Adaira's excitement began to turn into quiet concern. Each missed cycle, each negative pregnancy test felt like a tiny crack in the foundation of her dreams. Emeka was patient, always reassuring her that they had time, but Adaira could feel the weight of expectation growing. One evening, after another dinner in near silence, Adaira decided it was time to take action. "We need to see a doctor," she blurted out, pushing her plate aside. They were sitting at their modest dining table, the warm glow of the room doing little to lift the tension between them. Emeka looked up from his phone, startled by the firmness in her voice. "Adaira." "No, Emeka, I'm serious," she continued, her eyes pleading. "It's been a year, and nothing. What if something's wrong? What if?" Her voice trailed off, but her expression said everything. Emeka frowned, his usually calm demeanor faltering for a moment. "Nothing is wrong, Ada. We're still young. These things take time. But what if it's more than just time?" Adaira's voice wavered, her anxiety bubbling to the surface. She had always been strong, but this uncertainty was wearing on her. The next morning, they booked an appointment with one of the best fertility specialists in Lagos. Adaira had convinced herself that the visit would provide clarity and solutions. They walked into the clinic hand in hand, Adaira's heart pounding in her chest. Emika squeezed her hand reassuringly as they sat in the waiting room, surrounded by hopeful couples and anxious glances. The consultation felt like a blur. Dr. Adewale, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a serious expression, spoke in medical terms that Adayara barely understood. She heard words like low ovarian reserve and increased difficulty conceiving naturally, but none of it fully registered. It wasn't until she caught Emika's stunned silence beside her that the gravity of the situation hit her. "So what does this mean?" Adayara asked, her voice small. Dr. Adewale looked at her with a measured gentleness. "It means that natural conception may be more difficult for you than most, Adayara. There are treatments we can explore, but you'll need to prepare for the possibility that it may take time, and there are no guarantees." "No guarantees?" The words echoed in her mind as they left the clinic, the once bright sun feeling unusually harsh against her skin. Later that night, lying in bed, Adayara stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning. Emika lay beside her, his arm draped over her waist. She could feel his slow, steady breaths, a contrast to the storm of emotions brewing inside her. She wanted to cry, to scream, to ask why this was happening to them, but instead, she kept her eyes dry, willing herself to be strong. "We'll get through this," Emika whispered, as if sensing her turmoil. His voice was steady, though Adayara knew he was battling his own fears. They were in this together, but for the first time since they married, the path ahead seemed unclear. Adayara took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, they would begin a new journey, one filled with uncertainty and challenges. But for now, in the quiet of their room, she allowed herself to hope that, somehow, they would find a way to make their dreams a reality. Adayara stood by the boutique's large window, absent-mindedly watching people pass by outside. It was a typical Lagos afternoon, busy streets filled with honking cars, street vendors calling out their wares, and the warm sun baking the city. Yet, despite the familiar hustle and bustle, Adayara felt detached from the world around her. A few weeks had passed since their doctor's visit, and the silence between her and Emika had grown louder. The once lively conversations about baby names and nursery decorations had dwindled into awkward pauses, both of them unsure of how to fill the growing void. Adayara's boutique, which once brought her joy and a sense of accomplishment, now felt like a place to hide. She poured all her energy into her designs, her fingers working feverishly over fabric, but her mind constantly drifted back to that small, sterile doctor's office and the overwhelming news they had received. "Mama Nkechi is coming to visit," Emika had mentioned one evening over dinner, his voice careful, as if testing the waters. Adayara's heart had skipped a beat. She loved her mother-in-law, but the mere thought of facing her right now felt unbearable. "Oh," Adayara replied, forcing a smile. "That's nice." Nice. It wasn't nice. It was terrifying. She knew what the visit would bring: questions about grandchildren, subtle hints about family expectations. Mama Nkechi, with her soft-spoken but firm demeanor, had always been supportive of their marriage, but she had also made it clear that she expected Adayara to provide heirs for the Okik family. The pressure weighed heavily on her, suffocating even the small glimmers of hope she had tried to hold onto. The following Saturday, Mama Nkechi arrived, her presence commanding even before she walked through the door. A tall, regal woman with a voice that could soothe or scold in equal measure, she immediately filled the room with her warmth and energy. Adayara greeted her with a hug, trying to suppress the nervous knot twisting in her stomach. "My daughter," Mama Nkechi smiled, holding Adayara's hands in hers, "you look tired. Is the business keeping you too busy?" Adayara laughed lightly, brushing off the comment. "Just the usual, Mama. You know Lagos, there's always something to do." Emika appeared from the kitchen, carrying a tray of tea. "Mama, you should rest," he said, placing the tray down and guiding her to the couch. "Rest? What do I need rest for? I'm here to visit my children," she responded, her sharp eyes flicking between her son and Adaira. Adaira could feel Mama Nkechi's gaze lingering on her, but she quickly averted her eyes, pretending to focus on the tea. The conversation flowed easily at first, talk of family members, church activities, and the upcoming community event. But eventually, Mama Nkechi's tone shifted, her voice growing more serious as she leaned forward slightly. Adaira, my daughter, she began, it's been almost 2 years now, and I know you and Emeka are working hard. But don't forget the most important work of all. Her words were careful, but the message was clear. Adaira stiffened. She had known this moment would come, but no amount of mental preparation could have made it any easier. Emeka tried to step in, sensing Adaira's discomfort. Mama, these things take time, he said gently, but Mama Nkechi waved him off. I know they take time, Emeka, she replied, her eyes still focused on Adaira. But we must be vigilant. You know how our people think. They will start asking questions. A marriage without children, she trailed off, letting the weight of her words settle in the air. Adaira swallowed hard, forcing herself to smile. We're doing everything we can, Mama, she said quietly, though the strain in her voice was evident. We've even been to the doctor. The room went silent. Emeka shot Adaira a look, surprised that she had revealed this to his mother. Mama Nkechi's expression shifted, her brow furrowing in concern. What did the doctor say? She asked, her voice now a mix of curiosity and alarm. Adaira hesitated. She hadn't planned on sharing this with anyone outside of their small circle. But now, with Mama Nkechi's expectant gaze on her, she felt cornered. They said, it might take longer than we thought, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, the room felt heavy, as if the very air had thickened with the weight of unspoken fears. Mama Nkechi sat back, her expression unreadable. After a long pause, she sighed deeply and took Adaira's hand again. My daughter, you are a strong woman. I know that. But you must also be a wise woman. Her tone was softer now, almost sympathetic. There are ways to fix these things. You must not give up. Pray. Fast. Do whatever you need to do. Adaira nodded, her throat tightening with unshed tears. She wanted to say something, to explain that this wasn't something she could just fix with prayers and fasting, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she sat there, silent, as Mama Nkechi continued to speak about faith, patience, and perseverance. Later that evening, after Mama Nkechi had gone to bed, Adaira and Emeka sat together in the living room, the tension between them palpable. Emeka reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. You didn't have to tell her, he said softly. I didn't want to, but what else could I say? Adaira replied, her voice breaking. She was going to find out sooner or later. Emeka sighed, running a hand over his face. We don't owe anyone an explanation, Ada. Not even my mother. Adaira looked away, her heart aching. It's not just her, Emeka. It's everyone. People are starting to talk. You know how our community is. They expect us to have children by now. I hear the whispers. I feel the stares. Emeka moved closer, wrapping his arms around her. Let them talk. Let them stare. I don't care what anyone says. We'll get through this. Together. Adaira rested her head on his shoulder, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. She wanted to believe him, to trust that their love would be enough to carry them through. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something precious was slipping away. The days after Mama Nkechi's visit were strained, an unspoken tension settling between Adaira and Emeka. Though they tried to go on as normal, working, socializing, and attending family gatherings, there was a growing distance between them. Conversations were short, and they often filled the silence with shallow topics. But Adaira could sense that beneath the surface, Cracks were beginning to form. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Adaira sat in front of the vanity in their bedroom, brushing her hair absent-mindedly. Emeka had been staying out later than usual, claiming that work at the bank was overwhelming, but she knew something else was keeping him away. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Emeka, her closest friend. "Are you free this weekend? We need to talk." Adaira stared at the message, a sense of dread filling her chest. Emeka had been acting distant for weeks, and Adaira suspected that the whispers she had been hearing about her struggles to conceive had reached her friend. She had seen the concerned looks from other women at church, the hushed conversations that stopped when she walked by. She wondered if Emeka, too, had begun to judge her for failing to meet the expectations of a wife. She didn't respond to the message. Just then, the door creaked open, and Emeka walked in. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, and his eyes looked tired. Adaira felt a pang of guilt. She knew he was dealing with his own pain, but lately, they had been dealing with it separately, each trying to hold themselves together. "How was work?" she asked, forcing a smile as she turned to face him. "Busy," he replied, walking toward the wardrobe and loosening his tie. "The new project is taking longer than expected." Adaira nodded, trying to keep the conversation going. "You've been staying late a lot. I miss you." Emeka paused, his back to her, then turned around slowly. "I know. I'm sorry, Ada. It's just, everything. The pressure. The questions. I feel like I'm failing you." Adaira's heart tightened at his words. She stood up, crossing the room to stand in front of him. "You're not failing me, Emeka. We're in this together. But it feels like we're drifting apart, and I don't know how to fix it." He sighed, looking away as he rubbed his temples. "It's not just you. It's everyone. My family, your family, even my colleagues, they all have opinions. They keep asking why we don't have children yet. And I don't have the answers." Adaira's eyes filled with tears. "I feel it too, Emeka. But we can't let them tear us apart. I don't want us to be like those couples who lose each other over things they can't control." Emeka nodded, but Adaira could see the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I know, Ada. But what if we never have children? What if we can't?" Adaira froze at his words. She had avoided thinking about that possibility for too long, but hearing Emeka say it aloud brought the fear crashing down around her. What if they couldn't have children? What if their love, which once felt so strong, wasn't enough to survive the storm? Before she could respond, Emeka's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then quickly silenced it. Adaira caught a glimpse of the name, Boma. She frowned. "Who's Boma?" Emeka looked up, startled, and quickly shoved the phone into his pocket. "She's just a colleague. We're working on the new project together." Adaira crossed her arms, her chest tightening. "And why is she calling you this late?" "It's work, Ada." "It's nothing," Emeka replied, his tone growing defensive. "You don't have to worry about it." But Adaira was worried. The distance between them, Emeka's late nights, and now this mysterious colleague, everything was starting to add up, and she didn't like where her thoughts were leading. "Is there something you're not telling me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emeka shook his head, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. "I told you, it's nothing. You're reading too much into this." Adaira wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. She had seen this pattern before in other marriages: the late-night phone calls, the excuses, the growing emotional distance. She didn't want to accuse him of something he hadn't done, but the uncertainty was eating away at her trust. "I don't want us to fall apart, Emeka," she said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. "But I need you to be honest with me." For a moment, Emeka didn't respond. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Ada, there's nothing going on between me and Boma," he said, his voice firm but tired. "But I won't lie to you. I've been struggling. This whole situation, it's breaking me down. I don't know how to handle it. And sometimes I just need space." Adaira's heart sank. She had feared that Emeka was drifting away from her emotionally, and now it was confirmed. He wasn't cheating on her, but he was pulling away, shutting her out when she needed him the most. "Space," she repeated, her voice shaking. "You need space from me." Emeka hesitated, his eyes filled with a mix of frustration and sorrow. "Not from you, Ada. From everything. From the pressure, the expectations, the constant questions. I feel like I'm suffocating." Adaira's tears finally spilled over, and she wiped them away angrily. "I'm suffocating too, Emeka. But we're supposed to face this together. You can't just shut me out because it's hard." Emeka stepped forward, taking her hands in his. "I don't want to shut you out. I love you, Ada. I don't know how to fix this." Adaira looked up at him, her vision blurred by tears. "Neither do I." They stood there, holding each other in the dimly lit room, both of them feeling the weight of their unspoken fears and frustrations. The cracks in their relationship were becoming more visible, and neither of them knew how to mend them. Later that night, after Emeka had fallen asleep, Adaira lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with thoughts of their future, their marriage, and the mounting pressure that seemed determined to pull them apart. She reached for her phone and opened the message from Emeka, finally typing a response. "Let's meet. I need to talk to." She needed her friend now more than ever, someone who could understand the turmoil she was going through. And as much as she loved Emeka, she couldn't deny that their relationship was teetering on the edge. The weekend came faster than Adaira anticipated, and with it, the weight of the conversation she had been avoiding with Emeka. She decided to meet her friend at a quiet cafe in Lekki, far from the prying eyes of those who whispered about her and Emeka's struggles. Adaira arrived first, the soft hum of conversation and the aroma of coffee filling the air. She chose a corner table, hoping the distance would give them privacy. She hadn't spoken to Emeka since their emotional exchange 2 nights ago, and the silence between them at home had only deepened her anxiety. The sleepless nights and growing tension in their marriage were wearing on her, but today, she needed to focus on her friend and maybe, in the process, find clarity for herself. The door chimed as Emeka walked in, her confident stride drawing attention from the patrons. With her tall, athletic build and radiant skin, Emeka was always the center of attention wherever she went. But today, Adaira could see a heaviness in her friend's eyes, a burden she hadn't noticed before. As Emeka approached, Adaira stood to hug her, but the embrace felt tentative, as if there was a wall between them. "Ada, it's been too long," Emeka said, sitting down with a forced smile. "I've missed you." Adaira smiled weakly. "I've missed you too, Emeka. I'm sorry I've been distant." Emeka waved her hand dismissively, but there was an edge to her voice. "We've both been busy with life." "I get it." The waiter came by, and they ordered drinks. For a few moments, they sat in awkward silence, sipping their tea and avoiding the topics that both of them knew were inevitable. Finally, Adaira broke the silence. "Emeka, I feel like something's been off between us. Is everything okay?" Emeka sighed deeply, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I've been hearing things, Ada. About you and Emeka. About the struggles you're going through." Adaira's stomach twisted. She had hoped to escape the rumors, but they had caught up to her, even through the person she trusted most. "What have you heard?" "That you're having trouble conceiving. That people are starting to talk." Emeka's voice softened. I didn't want to bring it up because I know it's sensitive. But I've been worried about you. Adayara's throat tightened. She didn't know how to respond, the weight of the truth pressing down on her. It's true, she whispered. We've been trying for almost 2 years now. And nothing. Amaka reached across the table, squeezing Adayara's hand. I'm so sorry, Ada. I didn't know how to approach you about it. I just didn't want to hurt you. Tears welled up in Adayara's eyes, but she blinked them away. It's been hard. And Amaka, he's been pulling away. I don't know how to fix things between us. I can't imagine how difficult that must be, Amaka said softly. But you and Amaka are strong. You'll find a way through this. Adayara shook her head, her voice breaking. I don't know, Amaka. Sometimes it feels like we're falling apart. And to make things worse, there's this woman from his work, Boma. She's been calling him late at night, and he says it's nothing, but I don't know what to believe anymore. Amaka's expression darkened. Boma? Ada, I've heard of her. She's known for getting involved with married men at the office. Adayara's heart dropped. What? Are you sure? Amaka hesitated, her face filled with concern. I didn't want to tell you this, Ada, but a few people at the bank have been talking. They say Boma has a reputation for being a homewrecker. The words hit Adayara like a punch to the gut. She felt nauseous, her mind spinning. Could Amaka really be involved with someone else? Was this why he had been so distant, staying late at work and avoiding her questions? I don't know what to think anymore, Adayara whispered, her voice trembling. I don't want to believe that Amaka would do this to me, but what if it's true? Amaka squeezed her hand tighter. Don't jump to conclusions, Ada. You need to talk to him, confront him about what you've heard. But whatever happens, you have to be prepared for the truth. Adayara nodded, though the idea of confronting Amaka terrified her. What if she found out something she couldn't handle? What if her worst fears were confirmed? That evening, back home, the air in the apartment felt heavier than usual. Amaka was sitting on the couch, his laptop open in front of him, but he seemed distracted. Adayara stood in the hallway, gathering her courage. Amaka, we need to talk.